Hello, Toronto Token Kai. My name's Christian Ringer, and today I'm going to be filming a how to make Shirasaya. I'm going to walk you through very quickly collection of wood, what a Shirasaya does, the kinds of tools you'll need, and hopefully at the end of this you'll be able to either confidently repair your own Shirasaya, or if you want to tackle building your own, that can be done as well. Alright, let's get to it. So, right now I'd like to examine a good Shirasaya blank. A Shirasaya is made from honoki, or Japanese magnolia. I'm going to try to focus in on this, and you can start to see the wood grain. So, what's important with this honoki blank, you'll see, is that the wood grain follows the curvature of the blank. This is pretty critical to having a good Shirasaya experience. So the first thing we're going to do before we get going is we're going to have to resaw this blank in half. I'd also like to bring to your attention, I don't know if I can get it to focus, but this is quarter sawn honoki. You can get plain sawn, you can get rift sawn, you can get flat sawn, but this quarter sawn is the absolute best. There you go. Now you can start to see it's a quarter of a tree. You can see the rings going from top to bottom, and this is what you want when making Shirasaya. Okay, so we can see how there is a very nice tight fit. Both sides were planed. Now what we have to do is put the blade on and trace out where we want our blade geometry to be. So next we move to the machi. I usually leave the habaki on, and I don't know if you can see this, but let's focus in tight. I made two small pencil lines where the bottom of the habaki is. This is basically going to denote the end of the koiguchi and the beginning of the ska. So I'm going to start with the mune, the back of the blade. I have gloves on that are nice and clean, so I should be able to touch the blade, no problem. I've used a wood block here to just kind of help make micro adjustments to make sure my point is bang on to my lines. And yeah, now I just like to use either a mechanical pencil, something where I can control, this plastic will probably do less than nothing to the burnished mune. You can also, I have in the past sharpened pencils in such a way where there is more wood on the one side and more lead on the other side, and I use the back edge of the wood to trace along the mune, but honestly mechanical pencils do the trick just fine. So we'll start at the tip, put a tiny bit of pressure down here, and just lightly strike a line. This is the mune, probably the most important part to get this whole process started. And let's swing on over to the habaki side here. You can kind of see, we're approaching the habaki side, so at the end of the habaki, don't worry about it. We'll address this part later, but for now it's important to just get right to that line. And we actually do not want to start carving the habaki out just yet, because that is critical. That tight fit is essential to the whole Shirasaya. So we're going to flip the blade and then do the other side. Okay, so you can see we have the blade traced out, and now I'd like to basically focus in here. Yeah, there we go. We're going to pay special attention to the habaki. And now at this point, we're just referencing the original lines we made to denote where the habaki ends. That's the habaki there. And the ska begins. That's over here. So all I did was I took I took a straight edge. I connected the two lines that I had made originally to denote the end of the habaki. Now what I want to do is, I'd like to very accurately transfer this line to the outside of the Shirasaya. So using a knife, you can just poke where the pencil line is. And now for me, I know where I want to be. That's pretty much bang on. Very nice. Okay, I'm going to transfer these lines using a square and a knife, like so. Okay, we're going to go ahead and cut this. So the trick we're going to begin removing material from the saya so that the blade can fit inside. You need to use a saya nomi. A saya nomi is a chisel especially made to remove material from sayas. I usually start at the mune side and I angle the chisel and plane out material until it is about half of the width of the blade. And starting at the back and working your way forward is an excellent way to ensure constant depth. You can use the remainder of the material as a reference point to see exactly how deep you're cutting. This is a good illustration to keep in mind when carving out the saya. One side will have a small lip to contain the ha. So after all that carving, I think it's important to stop and check and see for fit. So what we're going to do is look at them today and make sure we are more or less cutting. We can see. So this is yorimune, so it's like a triangle for triangle shape. That's what the spine of the blade is, and we're just looking for that triangle part of the mune to be cut in half by our saya. That's what we're going for. So it looks pretty decent. It's a really hard thing to see in the light. However, right there we look a tad low. If we can zoom in right there, you can see the yorimune, and it is peeking up above the halfway point. We'll have to refine the carving a little bit more, but overall this is good. We will address the koiguchi later, and we're going to start on the other side now.
Okay, we've gone ahead and carved both halves. Now I'm going to do a test fit with the blade coated liberally in Chojiabura oil. So it looks pretty good for a fit. Aha! I'm sensing some resistance here. And so what I'm going to do is let it sit for a second. And when I take apart the saya, we'll see oil stain. And that is where the material needs to be removed. Okay, so next we're gonna make sokui, which is rice glue. That comes from, well, rice. Like, you just basically mash up rice with a bit of water until it creates this paste. Just use a wood spatula on a flat board. It just takes time. Okay, I gotta make this quick because drying time is critical. We just apply it to the back end, and now I'm just going to apply this and give it a little rub mate. So that means I'm gonna line it up as best as I can and just kind of spread the glue between the two joints like this, give it a little rub. Okay, now we're going to be carving out the scup. What I like to do is, well, we have obviously we drop our blade down where we had placed it in the beginning of this whole thing. We had already laid out an outline. Now we just confirm. Okay, so I've done the first half. I've got it hollowed out. Let's try to adjust the focus here. I'll come a little closer and we're going to adjust for close-ups. So look, this is looking pretty decent. A good test, a good way to check is to insert half the handle. I'm only holding this by the habaki. I'm going to slide it down onto the workbench, give it a few little taps, back able to support itself from the pressure fit. So we've made a socket. Well, you can see it's basically taking half width, socket fit. It should stay with pressure. Well, hello there. So I've got the nakago fitting very tightly. What I did was I scribed where the mikugi-ana is. Now what I like to do is set up using a tapered drill bit on a drill press. And I'm going to switch over real quick and show you what this setup looks like and why I do this now as opposed to later on. So once we have our mikugi-ana, well, I guess you can see that. Look, there's the focus. So this drill bit is actually thinner at the bottom and thicker at the top. And I have it set so that when I plunge down, it stops right at the board, this bottom board. I'm going to first drill out the small side. So this is the smallest side, so I'll first drill this out. Then I'm going to put the two together after a glue up. Back bore through there to find a center hole. And then I'll come back here and complete the hole again. When I back bore through here, it'll be of the same small diameter so that this can find center and then bore out to the final width. I'll show you what this looks like in a second, and this is, in my opinion, the most accurate way to get a nice snug fit with the mikugi pin. Okay, so we've drilled out the small end. You can see there's nothing. We're going to zoom in and I'll show you just like the standard drill bit I have there. So that is going to now transfer my small hole to the opposite side, and then we'll rinse and repeat with the tapered drill bit. Switch back to the tapered bit, and then we'll go from the top down again. until now, we've flattened the top, flattened the bottom. We've created a nice, consistent curve on the ha, and then we just mirror that on the back here. You can see here, nice and consistent. Now we're going to draw our tapered ends into the saya and the handle. We'll start at the suka part here. The outside stays a constant curve, and the inside can start to develop an hourglass shape. Now let me grab my calipers. Got about 1 7/8 up here, and let's bring it in significantly down here. Just under 1 3/4 inches. So we have a little over 1/8 of an inch taper. This end, we're gonna want to do a similar thing, except we can use our middle finger to stabilize, and we can slowly pinch as we pull back towards ourselves. And there we have a nice gradual curve. Okay, so we can see we have the rough tapers in the Shirasaya. I've drilled an exact centered hole at, I get just over 1/4 inch. I'm now going to drag this across the base and establish this. Helps immensely. So next up, we're going to be laying out our lines for our center here. So, I'm going to zoom in as close as I can. This is after the first roughing pass. We have filleted or rounded over all of our corners. For the roundovers, I make my own custom card scrapers. Okay, so now we're just going to clean up that round over with our spoke shave.
They be on the deals, Nick.
Okay, so we're on to the final step, which is we're going to be taking this Ibota powder to apply it to the Shirasaya and work it in with the Tokusa block. This is the step that I haven't seen this done. This is just to the best of my knowledge how it's done. Now, exactly how to apply the Ibota flake is a bit of a question mark for me. I have some idea using, like, I like to use like a rice paper. I make this very powdery. I put it inside the rice paper and I just dab it on. We're gonna try that. I think that's the smartest way I could figure how to do it. But again, this is an ongoing process. You know, saya making is a bit of a mystery in the West. There's no movies how to do it. I haven't seen much in the way of demonstrating the actual technique and how to make sais. So again, for what it's worth, this is how I do it, and let's see how the results are. Now that we have some spread all over, we'll put a bit more and work it in with the Tokusa block. So we're about done. You can see the Ibota flake adds a nice waxy luster. I can only imagine it's going to help keep moisture out. If you have a nice tight seal around the ska and the koiguchi like you can see there, I think this is going to do its job in protecting the blade and keeping moisture and anything that could damage the blade, keeping it out. So let's just go ahead and take a look here at the functionality of this. Nice tight fit. There's a bit of dust still in there. Now let's take the pin out, the mikugi, and see how this comes loose. Should come out with one strike. Very nice. And let's try to seat it again. So loose. One strike. Maybe two. That's it, 2 strikes. Pin goes back in. I still clearly have lots to learn. I think the biggest problem we face is selection of honoki. So for example, this Shirasaya is the dimensions that it is because of the thickness of the honoki that I had. When I received the honoki, it was 1.25 inches, a little bit under 1.25 inches in width. By the time you resaw it and plane the 2 halves to join them together, you've already lost at least 3/16 of an inch. The thickness of your stock is going to be a driving dimension in your design. Ideally, you start with much thicker and you remove as you need. Unfortunately for me, I did the best with what I had. But I can say that having good honoki that is quarter sawn, it behaves remarkably well. Like, just look at all these shavings. Look at all these shavings. You don't get that with other woods. This is incredibly easy to plane wood, and it's all about the grain following the curvature of the blade and the quarter sawn. Those are the 2 critical things you have to have in a Shirasaya to make it possible to shape and to make it possible so you can get shavings like this with no blowout, with no tear out, with no grain run out, all of that nonsense. Let's continue to kind of like push forward and pool knowledge, and hopefully I and all of us can improve our techniques and methods for creating or touching up Shirasaya. Thank you.
Hey baby, I hear the blues are calling, tossed salads and scrambled eggs. quite stylish. And maybe I seem a bit confused. Yeah, maybe, but I got you pegged. But I don't know what to do with those tossed salads and scrambled eggs. They're calling again. Scrambled eggs all over my face. What is a boy to do? Frazier has left.